Hi, let me show you how I made this crochet crown for my Thwompette cosplay. It could really be used for any variation of the Bowesette meme. I just made Thwompette because thwomps are one of my favorite things about Mario. There will be a link to the written version of this pattern free on my website in the bio below. To create the base of the crown, we're going to make a magic circle, single crochet 6 in that, and keep going out with an increase of 6 stitches until you have 7 rows. Then it's time to attach the wig clip. Wig clips are my go-to whenever I need to make an accessory that's going to be clipped to my hair or a wig, as the name implies. For these particular wig clips, I am using sewing thread with a sewing needle. In the past, I found wig clips that are big enough to use a darning needle and then just regular yarn. So we are going to be sewing down both sides of the wig clip, and then we are going to go to the opposite side and sew on another wig clip. I have them face outwards from each other. I just find it is more secure when I do that. Now we're going to move on and start crocheting up the crown. To do that, we're going to do a back post only single crochet. So that's what I'm doing here. Instead of going into the stitch like you normally would, I go into like the tops of both of the stitches, as you see, and I'm going around the post of the stitch, not actually into the last single crochet. And I do this all around the crown, and that is how I go from expanding out to going up the crown. That back post only row is going to be round 8. Actually, I'm sorry, it's in the round. We connected at the end. That's what makes it different from just a row and crochet. And then from round 9 to 11, we're going to be just single crocheting around, no back post only, just regular single crochet around, no increases or decreases until we get to round 12, where we're going to decrease twice. Once in the first 2 stitches, and then in the middle in stitches 22 and 21. Now we'll work on the points of the crown. We're going to want 4 of these. I already made one of them. We're going to start off by decreasing in the first 2 stitches, and this will begin row 13. We're now in rows because it is not connected like it would be in the round. So you decrease, and then you do 6 stitches, and then you decrease again, and that will have us going into 10 of these single crochets around. And then when we move on to the next row, which will be row 14, we're just going to single crochet across. And to get to the point, we are going to repeat decreasing on either side and then just doing a row of single crochet across until we get to row 20. And here is the crown with all 4 points. Like many items in the Mario games, it's got to have some eyes. So we're going to take our black yarn and we are going to chain 3. Now, if I had finer black yarn, I perhaps might have switched to this, but I wanted it all to be the same hook and same weight yarn. I was using scrap yarn anyway. So then we're going to go back into the second chain from the hook, and we're doing a slip stitch. You can see I actually have a little bit of trouble doing this slip stitch into such a tiny chain, and I actually just end up picking up stitches with my fingers instead of the hook when it gets a little bit tricky. Yeah. I don't think there are any rules to crochet as long as the stitch gets done. So that second chain from the hook will be 2 slip stitches, and then the last one from the hook is going to be 3 slip stitches. And then when you're done with that, you're going to cut and leave a long tail, because that is what we are going to be using to stitch it to the front of the crown. And here we go, one step closer to going from a normal crown to a Mario Bowesette crown. I'm just stitching eyes onto the front. It's going to be at the base of one of the points of the crown. So whichever one you choose, this is going to be the front of the crown. And this is what it looks like when it's got its face. Next, we're going to go ahead and make 4 little circles that are going to go on top of the crown points. All I'm doing here is making a magic circle and half double crocheting 6 around it. And then I'm going to leave a long tail so that I can use the tail to sew it to the tops of the crown. I do this as a different order in the written version of the pattern. Sometimes I will film stuff and then the order that I film in doesn't make as much sense when I'm writing it out, so there will sometimes be discrepancies in the written pattern versus the video, but do it in whatever order makes sense to you. Some things will need to be done first, like you gotta make the crown before you can attach the pink mushroom base of it, which we will be getting to after this. But there are no rules to this crochet thing. This is just like a guideline. So this is me sewing on the points, and you're going to do this for all 4 of the points. And this is what it should look like at this step. I don't have footage of me crocheting any of these pink wedges, but I made 4 of them, and initially I did a chain of 2 and then I single crocheted 2 in it, and then I began to increase in the center and not on the sides so that it would sort of puff up in the middle. Then I pin all 4 of them together, or sorry, I should say I clip them. I like using these sewing clips. Pinning is not as helpful when it comes to crochet, at least in my experience. But you don't actually have to clip anything together. You can just hold these pieces. But we're going to clip them so that the point is facing inward, and we're going to attach all 4 of them together. And then we will single crochet the sides together. You won't see the seam, so I'm single crocheting here. If you wanted to, you could hand stitch it, hand sew it together. But for my purposes, I usually go with a single crochet seam. It's just the fastest and most effective way that I tend to attach stuff together, if you have noticed from many of my other patterns. And this is me just single crocheting up to the center, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of the seams. And we need to make 2 white circles to go on top of the pink puffy center. To start off, like the gold circles, I'm just going to make a magic circle, and I will be doing half double crochets, 6 of them, into the center and then slip stitching them together. But for these, I'm also going to do a second row where I half double crochet 2 into every stitch around. So I will end up with a second row of 12 stitches. Once again, we're going to leave a long tail because that is what we will use when we attach it to the pink part of our crown. So I'm just going to sew that on here, and then I will show you how I attach this to the inside of the crown. Now we are almost on to our final step. I'm just adding stuffing into each of the 4 sections I created by making the 4 separate wedges, and then also putting any little scraps and bits of pieces of thread or yarn that have collected along the process of this into my plushie. It's at the base, and then I top it off with some more stuffing. And yep, I'm just going to put that in the center there, and it will be hidden in my plushie. This is something that I do with most things that end up stuffed. And so you want to use the points of the crown to kind of pull this up. The pink is going to sit on the inside of it, and we are going to be stitching around with yellow thread. We're not going to be stitching up and down the points. We're actually only stitching, see, in this row, this would be round 12 of the crown that we crocheted. We're just going to go around at that level. I don't attach it all the way up to the points where the circles are, because in the crown references that I have, it looks like it is not like right up against it. So that's what I decided to do. And yeah, this is the last step. After that, you just weave in the last ends, and you will have your Mario, Bowesette, Thwompette, Bowesette, whatever et you plan on making. This is a crown that you can use for it. If you make it, let me know. I'd love to see.